Yes.
Sex ed isn't going to improve math scores, so tell me about something else.
Sure, but it'll definitely not stop distracting students, and maybe they could focus a bit more on math if they weren't talking about anal sex in the classroom.
Right now in Ontario, Canada, there is a PC leadership race that's currently going on. Now, there is an actual general election, Ontario general election, for the Premier of Ontario happening in June. But currently, because there is no PC leader, because the former PC leader had to step down due to sexual misconduct allegations, there is this leadership race that is going on. And they just held a debate that was incredibly entertaining. And I'm going to play some clips from that. And so what I was going to do here was really just play some clips and laugh. But as I was going through this, I was just picking up on all the misinformation that was being spread. So I had to, inject some actual facts into this conversation because there is just so much insanity happening. Now, these four candidates that are currently vying for the leadership, Christine Elliot, Doug Ford, Carolyn Mulrooney, and Tanya Granick Allen, were very excited to talk about sex ed. And in some cases, really excited to talk about anal sex. Now, so before I do any of that, for you, if you're not living in Canada, you might not understand what PC is. So the PC party is Progressive Conservative Party. But don't let that confuse you. This is the Conservative Party. And I think once you see some of these clips, you're going to understand why it's the Conservative Party. So first, let me just play this one clip to set up the conversation.
I want to make sure I'm respectful to everybody here. I know you're Ms. Elliot, you're Mr. Ford, you're Ms. Mulrooney. What am I calling you?
Mrs. Granick Allen.
You got it. Okay. In which case, how would you answer the question?
I have to talk about the sex ed. I have to. It's my number one priority.
We're going to come to that. Trust me.
I'm burning to talk about it.
I know you are. And trust me, we will get to that. But I want to know what else in education today needs improving that you've got your eye on.
Well, I bring it back to the parents. What is the feedback we're getting from parents? And again, I really want to talk about the sex ed, but if you're pressing me,
sex ed isn't going to improve math scores. So tell me about something else.
Sure, but it'll definitely not stop distracting students, and maybe they could focus a bit more on math if they weren't talking about anal sex in the classroom.
What do you say to that? What do you say to that? I have to applaud Steve Paikin here for being so stoic during this debate. He's a smart guy. Steve Paikin is the guy leading the debate here. He's a smart dude. I think he understands how crazy some of these candidates are. And he was able to not laugh at the comment that, well, if students weren't so focused on anal sex, maybe they'd have better math scores. Who are you? So, this is the candidate. So, all these candidates are a little off. But Tanya Granick Allen here, she's the one that nobody even knew of until this debate. So, her whole purpose here is to talk about sex ed. That's why she's here, basically. Now, she's going to have more entertaining lines a little farther into this video. But okay, so let's get into the next clip here. And this is, oh God, Doug Ford. You should recognize the name Ford. Doug Ford is Rob Ford's brother. Yes, the crack-smoking former mayor of Toronto, Rob Ford, who you might not even know, because I have noticed a lot of people that don't live in Canada don't realize that Rob Ford died. Rob Ford died of cancer. He's gone. And now we have Doug Ford. And while Rob Ford was, not the brightest guy and had many flaws, Doug Ford is a little smarter, but not smarter on policy. Just smarter in terms of he's more toned down. But that doesn't mean he's any brighter. So let me just set up Doug Ford with this clip.
People are sick and tired of the liberal ideology that's being shoved down their throats. And that's from everywhere, right across the board. They did not consult with the parents. They did not consult with the teachers. I have numerous friends that are teachers. They weren't consulted whatsoever. None were consulted. Parents were not consulted.
Parents were consulted, maybe not adequately.
Parents were not consulted on this education system, on the sex ed education, I can guarantee you.
Okay, Doug Ford. Apparently, according to him, parents were not consulted on the sex ed curriculum. He can guarantee it. Doug Ford is a businessman. I mean, his dad was a businessman and then he inherited it. But yeah, Doug Ford is a businessman. When he guarantees something, he means it. Except that, here's the Toronto Star in 2014, Ontario to survey parents as it updates elementary sex education program. Here's CBC News in 2014, Ontario Sex Ed, province asking parents for advice on curriculum. And here's HuffPost in 2015 when the new curriculum was being enacted. Ontario Sex Ed curriculum infringes on parents' rights? Think again. That Ontario Premier Kathleen Wynne did not personally consult every parent in the province does not mean that there was inadequate consultation. In fact, 4,000 heads of parent councils were involved in the development of the curriculum. Indeed, sex education is practically the only area of the curriculum in which any consultation is even expected. When is the last time parents complained about not being consulted on the new math curriculum? So, yes, parents were consulted. What Doug Ford told you was simply not true. And how about the teachers? Doug Ford said the teachers weren't consulted on the new curriculum. Well, here's Ontario Education Ministry spokesperson Gary Wheeler. Here's what he said to Global News back in 2015. In addition to the input received through further consultation with parents, completed near the end of 2014, the ministry also considered input from consultations with students, teachers, parents, faculties of education, universities and colleges, and other stakeholders. This included feedback we received from over 70 health-related organizations. That includes the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health, the Ontario Public Health Association, and Ontario Healthy School Coalition. Current research and our extensive consultations indicated that the focus should be on providing factual and straightforward information to students and destigmatizing concepts associated with sexuality. So, yes, teachers, parents, and a hell of a lot of other people were consulted on the sex ed curriculum. Now, let's get to the next clip, which features Christine Elliot.
But the other whole area that the curriculum doesn't cover is things like cyberbullying and sexting and all of those things related to technology. I want to make sure that our children are going to be protected and that they have the knowledge and information they need.
So Christine Elliot is one of the smarter ones on the panel. And when I first heard this, I thought, oh, good. That makes sense. I think sexting should be a part of the sex ed curriculum. Until I actually looked into it. So here's CBC News Toronto from 2015. New Ontario sex ed curriculum to include look at sexting risks. Here's DurhamRegion.com in 2015. Sexting part of Ontario's updated sex education curriculum for students. And here's the Globe and Mail. Ontario's sex ed overhaul aims to bring curriculum into digital age. So even Christine Elliot, one of the smarter people on this panel here, even she is spreading misinformation about what is or isn't in the sex ed curriculum. Now let's go to the next clip, which features Carolyn Mulrooney.
And in this case, the curriculum was developed mostly with bureaucrats and not enough with parents. But going forward, I will ensure I commit to consulting parents on all things that affect families and children. But I am not going to reopen the curriculum.
Oh my God. Some actual sanity here. So that was Carolyn Mulrooney. She is the daughter of former Prime Minister Brian Mulrooney. Now, I don't like nepotism. I feel like that may be the only reason she's here. Not saying she doesn't have a career, a proven track record of working in business, but you have to understand, when you are the child of a former prime minister, as our current prime minister is Justin Trudeau, you have a lot of benefits that other people just don't have. So Carolyn Mulrooney comes from that privileged place. That said, she is at least speaking in reality here, and she doesn't want to actually repeal the sex ed curriculum. So good for her for taking a stand here. Now, let's go from that extreme to the other extreme. Tanya Granick Allen, the lady here that nobody really knows. I have, I think, a couple clips on here, and it's let's start with the first clip.
What you must do is repeal the Kathleen Wynne sex ed. So we're going to do 4 things, Steve. We're going to, number 1, repeal the sex ed. It's got to go. Number 2, we're going to review it. We'll do a whole review of all the line-by-line items within the sex ed. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to replace it with something that is age-appropriate, that doesn't sexualize children, and that parents are okay with. And the 4th thing, and I call this my 4 R's, is we're going to respect. Respect the parents. Always give them an opt-out. Always give them notice before these lessons are introduced. And we're going to give them ultimate responsibility to take care of their kids. They get to choose.
Okay, so Granick Allen here said a whole lot of nothing. Her plan is her 4 R's. The first one, repeal it. We're going to repeal it. And then we're going to review it. You're going to review it line by line after you repeal it? Shouldn't you maybe review it first and then repeal it? I think maybe she mixed up her R's there. And then they're going to replace it. And then they're going to make sure they consult parents and give parents the ability to pull their kids out of sex ed classes. You know what? That seems reasonable. If you're a parent, you know best. You want to pull your kid out of sex ed. That's good. I agree. Except that already exists. Here's the star. Parents against sex ed can pull kids from class, minister says. So they can already do that. Granick Allen offered nothing here. She was never specific about what exactly, except for something we're about to get to. But she lacks specifics on what actually bothers her about this curriculum. And then she offers empty solutions. And in one case, a solution that already exists. If you want to pull your kid out, you can. Now let's get to the last and I guess most entertaining clip. And that one's about anal sex.
Most parents in Ontario are not comfortable that their child in grade 7 is learning about anal and oral sex. Find me one. I have yet to meet one. We need responsible sex ed that teaches things like pornography. Right now in our curriculum, pornography is not even mentioned. I'm not sure if any of the candidates even read the curriculum.
Okay, so let me address that in reverse order. First, she mentions pornography is not even mentioned in the curriculum. I looked it up. I didn't see anything about pornography, so I'm guessing it's not mentioned in there, so maybe she's right. But if pornography was in the curriculum, then she would be on this panel talking about how teachers are teaching their kids about porn. You know that's exactly what she would be doing. So I find it kind of funny that she's talking about how porn should be in the curriculum. Now, let's get to the part about how kids are being taught about anal and oral sex. Well, this has been debunked a number of times. Let me read the breakdown from the Star here about what is actually taught in the classroom about anal and oral sex. Anal and oral sex are not taught. The words anal intercourse are provided as an example in grade 7 as follows. Quote, explain the importance of having a shared understanding with a partner about the following. Delaying sexual activity until they are older, like choosing to abstain from any genital contact, choosing to abstain from having vaginal or anal intercourse, choosing to abstain from having oral genital contact, the reasons for not engaging in sexual activity, the concept of consent and how consent is communicated, and in general, the need to communicate clearly with each other when making decisions about sexual activity in the relationship. This means that a teacher could use this as an optional prompt, but it is not expected as part of the curriculum. If it were mentioned, it would be in the context of delaying sexual activity. including anal intercourse or oral genital contact. This is listed because with misinformation or lack of information, sometimes students do not know that sexual behaviors other than vaginal intercourse still pose risks of sexually transmitted disease. So, anal and oral sex are brought up in the curriculum first just as an example of something that a teacher could use in a lesson plan to discuss how these forms of sexual contact can still transmit sexually transmitted disease. So, students are not being taught about anal and oral sex. They're being warned that you can still get a sexually transmitted disease from these behaviors. So, again, we're back to the misinformation campaign. This just blatant lying. And she claims to have read the entire sex ed curriculum. She claimed that in this debate.
Does anybody know how long it is? How many pages it is? It's 242. I've read it and I see what's in there.
So if she read it, then she knows that she is lying. And here's what former Education Minister Liz Sandals said about this in 2014. We're concerned about getting information to students because one of the things we can see when we look at public health data is that while the teen pregnancy rate has gone down, the teen sexually transmitted infection STI rate has gone up, said Sandals, which tells us that kids have figured out how to not get pregnant. But if we have the STI rate amongst teens going up, it isn't that sexual activity never takes place. So the thinking behind this is very clear. Teen pregnancy rates keep going down, but sexually transmitted diseases kept going up. So they realized that, well, I guess we're teaching kids about how to not get pregnant, but we're not telling them enough that you can still get a sexually transmitted disease through other forms of sexual behavior. So that's what the new sex ed curriculum addressed. So the amount of misinformation that is being spread about this, really just from the PCs here, the one side, is insanity. And it bothers me because people will watch this, think they're telling the truth, and then start telling other people about this. But these are all lies. And all it took for me to find this out was a quick Google search. You can actually look up and read on various websites, not even just media sites like The Star, but go to the actual Ontario curriculum website and read about what is taught in schools at every grade level on the sex ed curriculum. And I'll have a link to that below the video. So if you are curious, go read it yourself. Don't trust people on either party to tell you what's in it. Actually go and read it. So, again, this race has been hilarious, but it's also been damaging because as long as there are people out here that are acting like authority figures on these issues, but really just lying and spreading misinformation, then it's really just a threat to everybody. Hey, if you like this video, hit that subscribe button below and consider throwing me a few bucks on Patreon at patreon.com/therationalnational or therationalnational.com/join.